Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a primetime edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 18th of December 2024. Now you got a little chilly over here in Cincinnati, just out of nowhere, just up to the 30s. Supposed to be chilly all weekend. Um, Supposed to be some snow hitting in some areas, I believe, over here. But it's coming the holidays. Crazy thing is, it's supposed to be in the 50s around Christmas. So wild weather over here in Cincinnati. Hope everyone, whatever parts of town you're watching, are doing pretty good. Shout out to everybody out there. Uh, just to touch on some subjects today. Uh, and of course, for my five followers, we're getting closer to the moment we've been waiting for, the rematch between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury, which I will elaborate on here in a bit. But as usual, on Wednesday, it's always pick 'em Wednesdays for week's NFL matchups. As usual, with it being the playoffs, I'm going to stick to the games that have playoff implications. Start with what's going on tomorrow in LA. This is the Chargers and the Broncos. Chargers were embarrassed. I mean, thoroughly embarrassed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past Sunday. Denver coming off the great win over Indy to come closer to clinching the playoffs. The defense led with with Bontiano, can't pronounce his name correct. Bonateno, can't pronounce his name, and of course Patrick Surtain. That defense been lights out. Bo Nix playing significantly better football as his rookie season has gone on. Chargers, of course, led by 80 standout Justin Herbert, a defense that was once, for a while, pretty stout, but in recent weeks when they faced top receiving cores like Tampa Bay, led by Baker Mayfield, it's been sort of exposed here a little bit. But I think the biggest lockout here is that Denver doesn't have the kind of big play receiving core, maybe outside of Cortland Sutton, that could challenge this Chargers team. I expect the Chargers, who themselves are getting closer to clinching a playoff spot, to start to take the steps to get there. I expect them to win this one at home. I think it'll be a close one possession game either way. I think the home field and the quick turnaround at home will favor the Chargers. So give me LA on their home field. Of course, the real doozies are tomorrow, coming up this Saturday. First one, of course, is the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't know what a bigger story is here, whether Patrick Mahomes is going to play or whether the Kansas City Chiefs fans, who I love to the moon and back, excuse me, are going to complain about the having Carl Sheffers as a referee. Excuse me. But I don't think either that's going to matter. I think Kansas City is going to hold serve at home. Houston, I think, is glued into the 4 seed. They are who they are at this point. They haven't had they've played with fire in recent weeks. Haven't had a significant win of giant proportions, coming off the win over Miami. But Miami, as we know, struggles against teams with winning records. I mean, Derek Stingley Jr. and Lassiter, the other, trying to become a solid secondary duo from there. Of course, C.J. Stroud, the standout quarterback. But I think in Kansas City, regardless of whether Patrick Mahomes plays or not, I think the energy of the home crowd is going to feed them to the victory as they inch closer to the number 1 seed, which they desperately need given all the injuries they have, especially now the one to Mahomes. And let me just remind you, idiots, about something. Patrick Mahomes doesn't fake injuries. I mean, 90% of you guys that are accusing Patrick Mahomes of faking an injury have never been man enough to step on a football field, have also not been man enough to suffer an ankle injury. So I'm not listening to you guys. You guys are just idiots in that regard. I mean, over dramatic, subject to opinion, but he's certainly not faking the injury. But that's not going to matter. Give me Kansas and home. I think they handle Houston. Uh, a little, maybe a one possession game there either way. But I think that Kansas is going to muck it up on their home field again as they smell blood for that number 1 seed in the AFC. And of course, the historic rivalry in the AFC North is taking place in Baltimore. This one is Pittsburgh against the Ravens. Story here is whether or not George Pickens is going to play. I know Watt got a little dinged up, but I expect him to play. Lamar Jackson didn't look all that great against the Pittsburgh Steelers the previous time. As you forever see, we get some comments here. Tyson's. I don't know what all this is all about. I'll get to you in a minute. But Houston and Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I think this time Baltimore's going to make the plays at home to get the job done. I know Lamar Jackson's historically struggled against the Steelers, and basically the Pittsburgh Steelers have played well in recent years. But at the same time, I'm not expecting. I think this time at home, give me Baltimore on their home field. But let's go to these Sunday games here real quick. Let you get these comments before I get to the boxing segment. The only ones we're talking about here is Philadelphia, Washington. I've been on the Washington bandwagon. I know Philly's going to probably clinch that division. I think this is the game Washington finds a way to clinch the AFC. Washington finds a way to clinch a playoff spot. They're going to get to 10 wins. They hold serve at home. They held their own in Philly a while back to a late collapse. I don't think it happens this time around. And I think Washington holds serve. Jaden Daniels has been solid basically all year long, probably the rookie of the year, and that holds serve. Tampa Bay at Dallas. I expect Tampa to hold serve at home. And the 49ers and the Dolphins. This one's a little tricky because 49ers are barely clinging on to a playoff spot, but Miami struggles against big teams, teams with winning records. And I expect the same to happen here. Give me San Francisco and a bit of a stunner on the road. And Minnesota at Seattle. Give me Minnesota on the road. That defense is playing lights out. They clinched a playoff spot, still in contention with Detroit for the NFC North title. Basically, the division is going to send 3 teams. So, actually, I'll get to the football real quick. Let me read this moron's comments here real quick. Tyson Fury's giant beard is illegal. I'll get to that in a minute because I'm going to say is I'm in your boat. I'm on your side. But I'll get to that here in a minute. Of course, the big news in the football field is Michael Vick continues redemption. Got him for the job at Norfolk State University. Gets the named as head coach. As I said yesterday, if he gets one of these head coaching jobs, it's a tribute to the hard work he put in after being incarcerated in a federal prison for 2 years for what he did with the dogs. And I said, as someone who's done work in animal shelters himself, I'm all for second chances for something like this, as long as you repent and show you can be a law-abiding citizen. And that's what Michael Vick has done. He did his crime. He did his time. Now he's back to where he needs to be. Shout out to Michael Vick for getting the job, and wish you nothing but the best. It's gonna be a lot of hope up both ways, all over the place. But I'll go ahead and take care of that. It'll take care of itself once the time comes, simply because I think Michael Vick has bigger fish to fry than worry about a bunch of idiotic activists who have nothing better to do with their lives and just bitch about what somebody does. Let me turn these off here for a second. Okay. Now to more NFL news. A bang for your buck signing took place in Arizona. Probably the one of the premier safeties, Buda Baker, signs a 3-year extension. Solid contract for a team that's basically turned it around. They're my surprise team coming into the season. I thought they'd be around the 9-8, 8-9 mark. Look like they're headed that way. Uh, Buda Baker, linchpin of that secondary. Arizona was not going to let him go. I mean, if he was going to be gone, you're talking about the premier safety in the entire NFL had he hit free agency, but he didn't. But I will acknowledge what if he would have left Arizona, I would have been one that would have been surprised, because that defense basically it's what you get out of Buda Baker, and pretty much the rest of the guys, although they've been solid, doesn't compare to the impact that he makes in Arizona. It was a solid contract, solid signing by Buda Baker, the Cardinals. Good contract for Buda Baker, one of the premier safeties in the NFL, and he deserves nothing but props for it. So, and said sorry for those who wanted a safety in the free agency who wanted him. I said he wasn't going anywhere, and he's staying. Basically, when Arizona hired Jonathan Gannon a couple seasons ago, you can sense the change in their culture a little bit. There's so much toxicity after the Cliff Kingsbury era, which basically nobody wanted to go to Arizona, especially when you consider Kyler Murray having a knee injury. Gannon sort of rebuilt that culture. He didn't win many games last year because there was a deficit in talent, but they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. You have a Buda Baker back in the defensive field, a resurgent James Conner, and the team is basically challenging for a playoff spot. Whether they get it or not is another question. But the fact they're 7-7 right now, I think it speaks to the culture change that's going on over there. And got to give kudos to Jonathan Gannon for turning that thing around. Because for a minute, nobody wanted to go to Arizona because Cliff Kingsbury just ruined it. And of course, the real story takes place in Atlanta. It was announced that Michael Penix Jr. is going to start over Kirk Cousins. I tried telling you guys in Atlanta this was going to happen. You guys thought you got a resurrection of Kirk Cousins, that he's going to be like in the elite quarterback conversation. Mind you, the guy signed a $45 million a year contract coming off an ACL injury. I had to ask somebody on my X platform, what was you expecting? Which I didn't know. But I'll tell you this. I said this all along. They mismanaged this whole thing when they signed Kirk Cousins and went to this with the draft pick. Blunt mismanaged it. That's why they're the Atlanta Falcons. They mismanaged everything. Now Kirk Cousins, I guess he had like 9 turnovers in the last 3 games or something like that, some ridiculous number. Led them with no other choice. We're interested to see what we get out of Penix now. It was a matter of time before they throw him in the Wolves. I wouldn't say they're tossing the talent on the season because they can still win the NFC North, the NFC South, excuse me. Because remember, they're only 1 game back at Tampa, but they have the tiebreaker, having swept the season series from Tampa. So let's see where this one goes. It was only a matter of time before this actually happened. If you didn't see this one coming, I don't know what to tell you. Now, of course, for the Kirk Cousins point of view, basically, if you're not going to play me, cut me attitude, because apparently he has a no trade clause. But Atlanta is going to wind up doing to him what Denver's done to Russell Wilson, was basically send him out the door to have to eat a contract, basically. So, and at that point, I don't expect anything different than what Denver did to Russell Wilson. I think after June 1st, they do cut like $20 million in savings additional. So it might be a post June 1st designation next year. So nobody knows. But let me remind you guys again, Kirk Cousins just came off an ACL tear. But again, the day, this is who Kirk Cousins is. Never really gained any traction this season when you think about it. Had maybe 2 good games tops, 1 or 2 okay games. But basically, you tell the season was done when they started against Pittsburgh, and the Steelers just absolutely mauled him. And from that point forward, he's been hit and miss. I mean, his biggest luck is they're playing the NFC South, where the Buccaneers missed both their wide receivers, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, for a substantial period in Tampa Bay. Basically, I think like 1-3 during that period. That's the only sticking point. But Atlanta didn't necessarily capitalize either. So we'll see where this one goes. Let's say good luck to Michael Penix Jr. because you're going to be in big games that matter for a playoff position. We're going to see what you're made of. Now, your biggest luck out is you're playing against the Giants, who are basically tanking at this point. So, who knows? So that takes care of my NFL football talk. Now, of course, the big fight week, and I'm going to revert back to these comments here, and I'll give you the other chances you want your attention. I'll give it. This is about the fight coming up between Usyk and Fury. Okay, I don't care about Tyson Fury's beard because I got news for you. I hate beards. Anybody knows me knows I hate beards. I always shave. But if Tyson Fury wants to grow a beard, kudos to Tyson Fury. I got a chance just a minute ago to see the open workouts for both of these guys. Fury is Fury. Usyk is Usyk. We know this. When Usyk is Usyk, get ready to get beat. When Fury is Fury, who knows what's going to happen? That's where the problem lies. Maybe it might be me, but Fury seemed more calmer at this open workout than maybe he's ever been. Just simply laid, basically butts up in a hoodie with the hands in his pockets. So, and basically not being the Tyson Fury that everybody know to be the all the theatrics, all the fun loving, and all the name calling and bashing or whatever the hell he wants to do. Seemed to be more subdued going into this fight. Hard to read because, as I said all along, Fury is Fury, and whenever you get Fury, you just don't know what you're going to get. But we know how Oleksandr Usyk is. Been there, done that. Cruiserweight division, heavyweight division, the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, and it's not even close. I'm interested to see because one thing I know, I was in a group chat the other day, and someone made an interesting point that the only success Tyson Fury had was when he decided to go to Usyk's body. But the problem was he went to the well one too many times, and that's when he got caught in the 8th and 9th rounds. That might be his only chance of winning this. Now, let me remind you, it's the same strategy he employed in the second fight against Deontay Wilder, where he poses weight and posing on him. But let me remind you, this is not Deontay Wilder he's facing. This is the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, Oleksandr Usyk. And I've already made my prediction early. I'll reiterate it tomorrow. This will be tomorrow and Friday when I look at the weight scales and all the other stuff. I might change my opinion. Who knows? But this is going to come down to, again, Tyson Fury likes to play mind games. Everybody knows this. That's why we can say Fury is Fury, and he's always going to be Fury. But you're not going to play mind games with Oleksandr Usyk. He's probably the only fighter in the sport that's not going to get rattled by Tyson Fury's mind games. In fact, you recall before the first fight, Fury saw Usyk at a fight in London. I can't remember which one it was. But basically, he just rambled being Tyson Fury. And Oleksandr Usyk just looked at him with a stone cold look at his face as if to say, whatever. That's how I know Tyson Fury is not going to rattle Oleksandr Usyk. It showed in the first fight. I said it was I had an 8-3-1 for Usyk the first time in terms of rounds, basically going away. Judges had it closer. One judge inexcusably had it for Fury, which I don't know what the hell he was watching. But this fight's going to eventually come down to whether who's going to pose whose will on the other, and who's going to execute their game plan as usual. But one thing I noticed in these workouts, Usyk is still Usyk. That might be all that matters at this point. I dive balls more into that closer to fight week. And of course, Friday is a live weigh-in. I will actually chime in on the my X platform about the particular weigh-in on that particular fight. Now to another fight that's been rumored to take place, has been on and off. This is apparently Boots Ennis versus Teo Lopez. First of all, Teo Lopez called out Boots Ennis. And of course, my guy from England. Big up, Jam. Shout out to you. Hope you're doing well across the pond. I just finished talking about Usyk-Fury. As I said, Fury is Fury. Usyk is Usyk. And, you and I know how that goes. But back to Boots Ennis versus Teo Lopez. I've never seen such a coward open his mouth and the tuck of sail between his legs in recent years the way Teal Lopez does. I mean, he tried to write off an irrelevant win over a faded Vasil Lomachenko, act like it's the greatest thing he's done when he's done absolutely nothing over an irrelevant opponent. Now he beats, he used up Josh Taylor, carries Steve Claggett at the distance, got a couple gifts in the middle there, and of course has his head handed to him by George Kambosos while he's making excuses for why he lost. Now he wants Boots Ennis, Tank Davis, and Terrence Crawford. They talk about one of this fight. Teal Lopez basically is taking the coward's way out after calling out Boots Ennis. And I agree with you. That's why I think Teal's going to duck the fight because of what you just said. That's going to happen because Boots Ennis, he doesn't have the big win yet, as we know. But this might be that coming out party for him if Teal has the balls to step through and take this fight. I agree with you. I think that's what happens because Teal's stock has hit the downturn ever since he beat the corpse of Josh Taylor. Because honestly, I wasn't impressed when he beat Taylor. He was lucky Taylor was just a shopboard commodity after his fights with Regis Prograis and Jack Cottrell. I mean, you know as well as I do because you and I did the fights. You and I watched a couple of fights together. Josh Taylor is a shell of himself, and Teal just capitalized. He calls himself the undisputed champ, never fully unified, so he has no room to use the word undisputed next to his name. But I want to see if he has the balls to fight a Boots Ennis or the balls to fight a Terrence Crawford. Actually, you forget about Terrence Crawford. Forget it. Remember what happened at one of the events where I guess Lopez confronted Crawford and he got bitch smacked? He'll never fight Terrence Crawford. He never will. Dude's clout chasing at this point. So I wish him nothing but the best on that one. Don't expect this fight to happen because Teal Lopez is going to duck. I mean, the dude carried Steve Claggett at the distance, and I'm still waiting for a logical explanation on that one. And now I see you on here, and I see a bunch of others on here. Just want to give a shout out to my followers, the ones that's coming from across the pond. Hope you guys are doing well. One of the things I like to do is talk about a historical perspective of the sport because, a lot of people are too much into recency bias, not myself. But I just going to bring it anyways. This is a bit of a sizable upset that took place 31 years ago in Mexico. This was the first of two meetings between Terry Norris and Simon Brown. Terry Norris was an offensive-minded buzzsaw for the longest time. But basically was padding his resume against has-been fighters like the corpse of Ray Leonard, the corpse of Donald Curry, Mildred Taylor, etc. Thought he was going to have one here with Simon Brown. But now, as Terry Norris was knocking on the door in that pound-for-pound ranking to challenge Pernell Whitaker for that top spot, because Whitaker overtook Julio Cesar Chavez for that spot. Enters Simon Brown, a former two-time world welterweight champ who is one of the better fighters of that time in the welterweight division. That doesn't stack up really just because his reign was sort of hit and miss, but a very sound, sturdy fighter with a very, very sturdy chin. Fight was supposed to take place in 1991, but it was postponed because there were some issues with Simon Brown's health. They went to the hospital over it, and they finally, after back and forth of meeting with the schedule, they finally met December 18th, 1993 in Mexico, part of a Showtime triple header, where Terry Norris was a 12-1 favorite and was supposed to make light work of him. That's why they fight the fights, people. That's why you don't win the fights in the odds makers, and that's why you don't win the fights in the betting tables. I got another weird one here. Hello, how you doing? I don't know where you came from, but you're on Twitch. By the way, shout out to you guys on Twitch. Terry Norris, maybe you can trace back to a knockout loss to Julian Jackson in 1989. Maybe a flaw Simon Brown saw in that fight and basically opened it. Basically, he stole a page out of what Sugar Ray Leonard did to Marvin Hagler because he was trying to basically steal the rounds, like the last 3 rounds of minutes of every round, like he did with Marvin Hagler. Like the last 30 seconds of a round, he would basically steal it because the theory is judges are more memorable by what they do in the last seconds of every round. But on this particular fight that took place, basically what happened. About 20 seconds left in the first round. A shotgun jab floors Terry Norris. At the end of round two, looked like Norris was seizing control. And then out of nowhere, a sneak right hand that wobbled Simon Brown, sent it back to the corner. End of the third round, same thing. Norris looked like he was starting to gain control. Simon Brown lands a combination, really puts Norris out on his feet. Norris is basically wobbling to his corner, doesn't even know where he is. But the first minute of the fourth round, a 1-2 right on the almost at the point of Simon Brown's or Terry Norris's head right here. Norris is down face first for the count. Simon Brown shocks the world and wins the super welterweight championship of the world. Maybe the flaw was the lack of discipline when it comes to Terry Norris, because I say this for this reason. He had a disqualification loss earlier in his career where he basically hit the guy like seconds after he was already down. He did it in one of the rounds against Ray Leonard, did it against Donald Curry, and got away with it against Donald Curry. It basically was a heavy favorite. It was looking ahead to big money paydays with guys like Pernell Whitaker down the line, and basically seemed to have lost focus along the way. That's what happened 31 years ago in Mexico with this fight. Because we harp on this, and I'll point to my guy here, because he and I talk about this all the time, the importance on taking care of business in the ring. That didn't happen 31 years ago. And because if you don't take care of business, you lose out on a lot. And that's what happened with Terry Norris 31 years ago. Now, there was a rematch that took place, but largely because Simon Brown was on his downturn, Norris just smartly boxed to a unanimous decision because he knew better not to get caught. But that was sort of an end game for him because he had 2 fights with Luis Santana where, again, his lack of discipline reveals itself again, the big flaw. He floors Santana face first, both times with punches behind the head, directly right in the ball point of the back of the head, the stem. Santana is out cold the first time, and he's declared the winner by disqualification. But they rematched 4 months later in Vegas. Norris dominates, floors Santana 3 times. Looked like he was going to do the same thing, but inexcusably, at the end of the third round, 5 seconds after the bell, a right cross knocks Santana out, and Norris is disqualified again. When you have this kind of a flaw that shows your lack of discipline in the ring, or basically in any walk of life, and it reveals itself in the end, it's hard to turn back. And basically, at the end, this is what you are at the end of the day. And I say this with regards to Terry Norris. I hate to be the Debbie Downer with him because I loved Terry Norris. But when some of your highlights include, stuff like this, where you're showing a lack of discipline in the ring, for whatever reason, it's going to come back to get you. And it did. And it did when he lost to Simon Brown 31 years ago, and it did in subsequent fights after. He did later win a belt, but lost to Keith Mullings, which cost him, essence of, I believe, some kind of a $8 million figure to fight Oscar De La Hoya in 97. And of course, he gets wiped out by Laurent Boudouani in a fight in France that had no business taking place because Terry Norris was way past it. Of course, revealed about the health of Terry Norris. He has Parkinson's disease. He suffers from a bunch of things. And largely because of the punches he took in the ring, which is people feel the root cause of it. Now, for Simon Brown, it was on his downturn, but they say you had the one great fight on your downturn before you head out. This was Simon Brown's basically last great fight before his downturn began. Basically, sucker Terry Norris exposed the flaw, revealed the fact that his chin wasn't necessarily all that great, and just targeted it until Norris couldn't take it anymore in the fourth round, and he was down and out for the count. A very, very solid welterweight and super welterweight who was a tough out for anyone in any era, simply because he mastered his craft very well for that time. And basically, it was going to be a tough out for anyone Simon Brown fought, or anyone who fights Simon Brown. Very strong fighter. He did lose the title to Norris, got another shot against Bernard Hopkins, but he was past it. Had a give and take 1995 showdown with Vincent Petway, where basically both guys were just knocked down all over the place until Petway starched him in one of the most grotesque knockouts you'll ever see. I won't talk about it. You can pull it up on the YouTube footage. But Simon Brown was a very, very, very solid fighter. Didn't escalate to the all-time greats because the greats over him in that welterweight division are through the roof, and it's basically who's who of the all-time greats. Before his time, a very, very sturdy welterweight, probably the top welterweight in the back end of the 80s, and maybe like up until like 91 when he lost to Buddy McGirt. A very strong fighter, solid career, solid wins, didn't duck anyone, fought the who's who, and basically held his own against some of the very best the sport had to offer in the welterweight and super welterweight divisions. Just a very, very terrific fighter and a beauty to watch. If you guys just want to watch a welterweight and just know more the beauty of it, watch Simon Brown. He was phenomenal, especially that give and take war he had in '91 against Maurice Blocker when they unified the welterweight championship. Give and take, never say die attitude of Simon Brown. Just knew what it took to win when it mattered most, and that's what he did. God, I miss those days very much because with all the things we have going on in our sports, but it is what it is at this point. What can you say? Just want to add one more thing to this. I just got this notification. I'm going to read this again. I guess someone tried to. I guess I might be a couple days late. Maybe you can help me out with this. I guess one of the undercard fights with Dennis McCann got postponed because of a flunked drug test, which is sad because I actually like Dennis McCann as a fighter out of England. But, you know, the sport has a lot of cleaning up to do. And of course, there's the controversy with David Benavidez and David Morrell, where I guess somebody didn't want to do the VADA test. No surprise because David Benavidez loved cocaine. But we have some cleaning up to do. I mean, the sport's dirty in so many ways. I don't know where to start to clean it up. Some people come to me for advice. I'm not a, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not a, deep analytic thinker when it comes to boxing because stats and boxing don't mix. As I said for all this time, because you guys love belts and punch stat numbers, don't even flunk those at me because they mean nothing. Because you can land up all the punches you want. It doesn't matter how good or how strong you or how soft they are. It don't mean a thing at the end of the day. I don't know where to start with all of this because, it's dirty. I mean, I could trace back many, many years. Not just dirty in the terms of the drug cheats, but also dirty in terms of the corruption. Because after, I guess, there was a rumored three-way FaceTime with Usyk-Fury and Turk Sheikh, people are now assuming that they're going to rob Oleksandr Usyk. I won't go that far because they had this prior to the first fight, and we saw what happened. Everybody needs to calm down a little bit. And I say this for one simple reason. The world is not going to end. The sport's not going anywhere. We can use a lot of cleaning up. But it's not going anywhere. I keep hearing for the years, boxing is dead. Boxing is on life support. Boxing is this. There's still good fights out there. You just got to dig deep and find them and follow them and see what's going on. That's all I got to say. Shout out to my guy, Jam Boxing Chat. And just a FYI, next year, he and I are going to be at it again with the Boxing Media Hour starting the first week of 2025, January 9th. I look forward to chatting up with him. You guys can catch us on the YouTube channel. And I look forward to chatting up with you again. And on that note, I will wrap up this Wednesday night edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everybody out there has themselves a wonderful 18th of December 2024. Wrap up all your Christmas shopping because the time is coming. Don't be caught out there in the stores while everyone is out there basically stuffing the stores, probably fighting in the lines for whatever it is they want to buy for Christmas. Get it done. Get it done now. And remember, always, 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 I say this to everybody equally, always make self-care your number one priority in life. Nothing matters to you than your own personal well-being. I tell it to everybody all the time. I had to learn that myself the hard way. Until then, hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful night. Take care of yourselves. God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow.